Hello, my name is Siva Kumar and thanks for watching Umoja Shots, where we deconstruct a complex solution in a simple and understandable form, taking one issue at a time. Today, we are going to discuss about the travel management in Umoja. It's going to be a simplified explanation. I'm going to give you a background and I'm going to tell you all the components which make up the travel management for better understanding. In Umoja, as we all know, it comprises of two basic functionalities. One is the foundation processes, which includes the central support, the program management, finance and budget and supply chain, and the extension processor where we incorporated all the travel management and HR, org management and payroll functionalities. By and large, both the foundation process and extension process utilize the processes and the workflows in somewhat in the same fashion, but there are subtle differences which we'll also touch up when we go through this presentation. Before that, we want to understand very simple things. What exactly is the difference between financial accounting and controlling? In the financial accounting part, where we actually make the financial transactions, we basically record the transactions as a part of the financial accounting system. However, on the controlling from the SAP standpoint, which is used by the cost center accounting, is used to calculate the cost of the product, and it is utilized for controlling the cost of manufacturing anything or spending anything. On the financial accounting side, we will have the ability to make a P&L or the financial position of the organization. In the cost accounting, we basically figure out the overheads and the capital cost. Another financial accounting, when we talk about the purpose, which is showing the correct financial position. However, on the controlling side, the cost is utilized to make a better and accurate decisions on a process or on a transaction. So by and large, the financial accounting where the transactions are made is utilized, or on the behind the scenes, we care about the transaction and access. However, on the controlling side, we are enabling decision making by providing the certification approval process based on the controlling object. Let's see the basic process design from the Umoja perspective. In Umoja, everything starts with preparation. And the preparation goes to a commit to procure, procure to pay, prepare to pay, and the payments, and then later on reconciliation. When we talk about the HR processes, we start with the request, and there is a verification approval and the recording. If I want to map this to a set of processes, like the verification starts with the reports, and the transaction starts with the requisitioning or the funds commitment, followed by order or a contract or a travel request. Then it followed by the invoice, and after the invoice is received, then actual payment happens through the treasury mechanism, and the reports are generated to make sure the amount of money spread across all the transactions, and also some overview of how much is available, how much is budgeted, how much is available, how much is committed, and how much is expensed, and what is the available amount. On the same token, on the HR side, you have a self and administrative services, which is routed to the HR partners for approval, and then the record updates in the system. And if you see these processes and all the middle bubbles, we have what is called the workflow. The workflow is a mechanism through which the request or the transaction created are routed to the people or the per set of people who can make a meaningful decisions in certifying and approving and pushing the document to the next step. When you talk about the processes in Umoja, if you put it on a two-dimensional matrix, on the one side you have the cost objects, which is grant, cost center, fund center, or any WBS projects. On the right side, if it is a master data, and it all starts with the issuance of the budget and allocation of the budget, and it trickles down to the creation of the post, appointment of staff and managing the staff from the HR perspective. And the funds management perspective, I can allocate or I can reserve funds using the pre-commitment or the funds commitment buckets. And then on the travel side, even though the travel is a part of a requisitioning, it kinds of outlier in SAP when it comes to the actual procurement process. So you have a travel request followed by an expense report. And on the procurement side, you have a shopping cart and a purchase requisition. It results in either a goods purchase order or a service purchase order. And the goods purchase order ends with the creation of the goods receipt and invoice receipt. And the service PO ends with the service entry sheets creation and evaluated receipt settlement for the next step. And all these things ends up in two things. On the HR side is running the payroll, and on the other side creating the invoice. And these two results in actual payments being dispersed to the recipient or the partners or the business partners. And if you see, SAP traversed through multiple modules and enabling these functionalities work seamlessly, and is well supported by the Umoja user management workflow and reporting. The idea of putting all these things in perspective is to give you a feeling that the mechanism utilized for user management and workflow is consistent across all these modules, and it kinds of works in the similar way, but sometimes not in the same way, but similar way. Before getting into the details of the travel management, let's understand the organizational concepts in Umoja. In Umoja, there are like four basic components, pillars, which has the organizational hierarchy. On the financial accounting side, you have a company codes and business areas. On the controlling side, you have a cost center hierarchy and cost centers based controlling. Under the funds management, you have a commitment item, fund center hierarchy, fund center, fund functional area, and funded program. And on the human resource or human capital management, you have an organizational unit hierarchy, which is the actual organizational organigram of the organization, and also has a personal area and sub area, which defines your country and the duty station, which also creates a hierarchy. The hierarchies are very important because through the hierarchies we can have a structured way of looking at things and the structured way of approaching a transaction approval process. With this background, let's get into the travel management. The travel management has two basic set of travel. Even though we have multiple variations, we can factor them into two basic variations. One is official travel and the entitlement travel. Let's take the entitlement travel first, and again we'll put it on the same two-dimensional graph for plotting. The entitlement travel starts, or any travel starts, with the requisition of leave. The leave request happens in Umoja time management and follows by this very simple mechanism, which you must all be aware of, is the trip request is routed to the HR partner for approval, and then it gets into the travel and shipment as approval, which is a TSA, the certification process, and then it gets routed to the approval of the trip through the TPO. And again, for the sake of simplicity, I have not taken the lump sum option. If there is a lump sum option, the lump sum request is sent, and then after the lump sum request is returned by the TPO, the staff member makes a diligent decision whether to go with a lump sum option or with the UN purchase tickets. Okay, so once the trip is approved, then the staff member may or may not have the shipment option. The shipment can be either based on the approved entitlement travel, or it could be a standalone shipment. So any shipment process requested by the staff member goes to the shipment unit for verification, and then it is sent to the travel and shipment approving officer, who is the certification officer, for approving the shipment request. This is the first part of the entitlement travel. Now the same thing, if you look into the bubbles, all the bubbles which have the small blue cogs, they have what is called workflow. And now in the subsequent slides we will see these workflows in details, how it is determined and on which process and what are all the basic data elements utilized to derive the respective approvers or agent, we call it Umoja. Let's take the official travel as a second step, and official travel has very similar steps but for no elimination of the HR partner in the process. Once the trip is completed, the staff member will have an access to create what is called an expense report, and the expense report goes through these multiple steps if the expense report is not an express expense report. An express expense report is an expense report which is exactly same as that of the approved travel request. Any deviation, it will go through a manual process. If the staff member is marked in the travel request that they are going as a part of the SG's delegation, then the expense report will be routed to EOSG for approval of such a request, because there might be an additional DSA entitlement allowed when you are a part of the SG's contingent. The next is, if your expense report has any cost adjustment, if it is more than 10% or more than $4,000, it will be routed to the shipment, the TSA for certification at the expense side. And if your travel had a non-UN paid ticket, or if it is a self-purchased ticket, and it needs to be routed to the TPO for their verification, and anything which goes through the the non-express way will be routed to the travel claims processor for manual verification and approval of such expense report. And again, if you talk about the workflow cogs, you have the workflow cogs in pretty much in all the places wherever it has been notified. Now, if you take all these processes and plot it, and this is how it looks like, the process versus the enterprise role, which is necessary to accomplish this whole orchestration of the travel process. It starts with the staff, and it includes the HR partner, travel and shipment approver, travel processing officer, shipment processing, travel claims, and travel administrator SG. We have some reports in ECC, such as Office Map, which gives you a list of people who have been mapped for your entity to these following roles. And make sure you have more than at least one person allowed for each role, so that you have some kind of a redundancy in the process and your processes are executed seamlessly without any interruption. And also, if you plot these processes across the systems, you will get up a very good feeling. The travel is heavily loaded on the Umoja portal side, because most of the functions are self-service functions. So the difference between a self-service and a back-end operation in SAP is all the validations and all the approvals and all the verifications in the portal side happens proactively, versus in the back office in in SAP it happens reactively. For example, if there is a cost center which I'm going to put it in a requisition in the back office, the system verifies my authority to post it on the cost center only after I press entering the cost center. However, on the portal side, the system will validate it well in advance, and it will only show the cost center which you are authorized to work on. Okay, with this, I'm going to explain you some of the basic wirings in the systems. I call it as a wiring and plumbing, because these are all the internal things which enables the process to work seamlessly. Step one, as any staff member is always related to an organizational unit. Step two, a staff member is always sits on a position, and the position is always been assigned to a funding source. We call it as an info type 1018. Number three is an organizational unit has a relationship to a travel processing office. The same way a shipment processing office or shipping office is also linked to an organizational unit. So these are all the wiring is already done in the system as a part of the design, so that when a transaction is created, the workflow and the processing happens based on this wirings. Next thing is, we need to understand the transactional default. A staff member or a travel administrator creating a travel request on behalf of the staff member, the trip request is created. The travel request has two basic defaults. First default is the cost center or the cost object. It is defaulted from the position funding source of the staff member or the traveler. And the travel processing office is defaulted based on the organization unit where the staff member or the traveler belongs, and the linkage, as we explained before, based on the wiring, which travel processing office is linked to that particular organizational unit. And again, these are all defaults, and all defaults values can be changed during the process of the travel request document. Before going into the next step, let's understand more about the defaulting of the cost center. The cost center default happens in two steps. A valid cost center is determined by the travel request end date. See, if the traveler enters a travel request from a start date to an end date, the system takes the end date and goes and finds out the funding source from the info type 1018 of the position of the staff member and determines if he or she has a valid cost center. If not, it goes to info type number 17 for the staff member to determine the cost center. For all the consultants and non-staff, the info type 17 has been maintained with the cost center. However, for the staff member, most of the cost center is stored only in info type 18. So make sure the cost centers are in place for the position of the staff member for which you are creating a travel request. The standard SAP not only stops with info type 17, it goes to info type 24 and info type 1 to verify the cost center's authenticity or the availability. However, in Umoja, we do not use info type 24 and info type 1 at this moment. Next is the travel request document. Let's understand a travel request document has three major components. One is the trip component. The next is the cost component. Third is the travel processing often component. The trip component has the trip details and travel type and trip activity type and the destination and the whole itinerary component. And the cost distribution of the travel, or who is actually going to be paying for the travel, is maintained in the cost assignment. And again, since travel is a requisition document, the cost assignment can be a one specific cost center or a set of cost centers. And also remember, in travel, the cost assignment division, or if there are two cost centers, the division is based on the travel document as a whole. If the travel document is $5,000, you can have a percentage split in the cost assignment for the total value for the document. However, there is no way you can split that the itinerary 1, leg 1 will be given to cost center 1, leg 2 will be given to cost center 2, DSA will be given to cost center 3. That division is not possible. And the travel processing office is also managed by the org unit, which we described earlier. With these backgrounds, let's get into the step-by-step understanding of the workflow and how the agents or the approvers are determined. Step 1, determination of the HR partner PA01 role. And any travel administrator who is going to create an on behalf functionality will be assigned with an enterprise role of travel and shipment administrator, and it's a universal role in the sense a travel administrator who gets this role can create travel on behalf of any staff member across the Umoja's ecosystem. A staff member who has the enterprise self-service role, employee self-service role, will be assigned to a position, and the position is linked to an organizational unit. And the next one is an HR partner who has an enterprise role PA01, who has been assigned to either an entity or a shared service center, is also linked to an organizational unit, one or more organizational unit. So with this configuration, when a document is created, and the trip document automatically finds out the HR partner who are responsible for that org unit, and the document is sent to them for approval. This is step 1. Step 2, determination of TSA, Travel and Shipment Approver. The code enterprise role is TB07. The travel document, we go to the second block of the cost assignment, which has a cost center, fund, internal order, or WBS. Whatever the cost assignment is given, the system first understands or deciphers the cost center and fund, and it goes into the partner relationship table. Now, in the partner relationship table, where a person who has been assigned with an enterprise role of travel and shipment approver is assigned to a specific cost center and fund. With this combination, the agents are determined, and the document will be sent to them for approval. Since this particular functionality is a little tricky, we have given certain amount of additional features for defining your certifying officers in multiple hierarchical level based on the organizational hierarchy which is available in our controlling and funds management module. Step 1, the system will find out the exact cost center and fund combination and look for the agent in the partner relationship table. If it does not find, or it finds, it goes to the same table looking only for the fund. The agents were assigned for the approval of the fund. The next one is it will look only for the cost center, and then it looks for the business area. Then all these agents are aggregated, and then all of them who are been qualified for that particular combination will be the set of approvers who can approve that particular document. Remember, a cost center fund, cost center, and business area, even though there is an overlap, the way in which we manage the partner determination relationship table, the data upload is kind of generates the exclusivity, meaning you will not have the person who is available in the fund and the cost center and fund combination. So if there is a fund which needs to be approved by a set of people, we manage only at the fund level. We don't have to manage it at the cost center and fund level. If there is a necessity, we can go to that level as well. As of now, based on the configuration, the system unions, it aggregates all of them. If there is a necessity, you need to have an exclusivity that is also possible by a simple configuration. The next one is the determination of the TSA if there are multiple cost objects. The multiple cost object in the sense there are, like, say for example, there are 3 line items and the cost of this travel or the document is split into 3 different cost centers. What the system does is it goes into individual line item and deciphers the approvers based on the previous slide. In this example, if you see, the first line item has 2 approvers, second is 2, and the third has 3. And then it aggregates and finds out who has the delegation of authority for all the cost object. In this case, only one person has all these 3, so he or she will be the approver for this particular document. And if in case there is a lot of possibilities, if you have not maintained one person who has an overarching delegation authority for all the cost object, currently it is sent to the workflow administrator. However, what we are planning to work is to send it to one central group which has been authorized by the controller's office so that they can have a meaningful understanding of the document. Either they can forward it to the respective or they can approve on behalf of the certifying officers into multiple line items. The next is the travel processing office. Before going to the travel processing office, we need to understand a small configuration in SAP where a travel processing office is linked to an organizational unit by customization. It is done by the travel team and it is already available. Then, the user management team manages the assignment of the enterprise role to an organizational unit. So the travel processing officers are linked to an organizational unit using an enterprise role. Then when a travel request is created by the staff who belongs to an organizational unit, the system defaults the travel processing office based on the configuration. And once the TSA approves this request, the system does the reverse relationship and it goes to the TPO and finds out the org unit, and from the org unit it goes and finds out all the travel processing officers assigned to that org unit, and the document is sent to them. This is the way the determination of a travel processing officer is made. On the same token, if you talk about the shipment officer, it is exactly the same as the travel processing officer. However, the enterprise role assigned in this case is TV08, which is the shipment processor. These are all the major workflow steps which takes place in the travel request process. And now we go into the travel expense side. In SAP, the travel request and the travel expense is the part of the same life cycle of the same document. If there is a travel request document 1, 2, 3, 4 created by a staff member, when the 1, 2, 3, 4, if it is the status is or, it is in the request. Once the request is completed, the status changes to E, means that the expense report starts. So on the expense side, the first step 1 is the EOSG approval. If a staff member on the request, if he or she has said yes to the question, or a part of it is contingent, and after the trip is approved, when the expense reports are created, he or she cannot do an express claim and it will be a manual claim, and then the system will look for the EOSG approver who has an enterprise role assigned to an org unit, in this case a central org unit called Executive Office for Secretary General, and the document will be routed to them for approval. Step 2 on the expense side is the determination of a TSA. So determination of a TSA is exactly same as that of the determination of TSA on the travel request side. If there is a cost which has been added on the expense side, either to the same cost center or to a different cost center, the delegation of authority for either one single cost center or multiple cost center is determined. If not found, it will be sent to the workflow administrator. The next step is the TPO for an expense on the expense side. Again, the travel request is read because it is the same document, and the TPO is determined who approved in the travel request, and an organizational unit is derived from there, and then the same organizational unit is utilized to determine the travel processing officers who are being assigned to that org unit, and the document will be sent to them for approving non-UN bought ticket on the expense side. The last piece of the puzzle is the determination of travel claims processor, which is TV11. In the TV11, is based on the certification process. The travel claims follows the travel certification. A travel document which has been approved by a cost center and fund, and the system determines the business area of that particular cost center, and then finds out the person who has been assigned with the travel claims processor enterprise role to that business area and sends it to them. So with all these things, we complete the stages of determination of the agents for the entire travel process. And thank you for watching this video. And if you have any questions, please let me know, or keep watching this channel. And thank you.